So today I'll be talking about how worms can use tangling ability to climb roots. So when we think about climbing in a living system, we think about lizards, monkeys, or vines. So they use gripping, adhesion, or grasping. And the peculiarity of this climbing is they are active climbers, and also they have certain active contact point like legs or hands to climb. And then when we think about limbless organisms such as snake, so they have concertina movement, lateral undulations, or they can even create a lasso knot at the tail of their body and climb the trees. So they have muscle contraction, muscle coordination, and active body control, and they use body stiffness to climb these trees. But then in much smaller length scale, like California blackworms, they are like centimeter long in length, and they are very soft, deformable, and they are found in aquatic environment. So how do they actually climb such in trees or plants in their environment? So we use, of course, we use the blackworms. So we yesterday we learned that they can form, they can tangle with each other and form worm bundle. So do they use this kind of tangling mechanism to climb the deformable bodies or plants in the environment? So Harry did some experiments with duckweed, which is commonly found in these freshwater lakes. So these are floating plants. They float at the interface of water and air. And then he found that if you mix duckweed and a worm system, they can climb. They can deform their body. They can actually climb these roots. So I create a lot of models for living systems. So when I think about such a system, I come from a polymer physics background, so where I can think of a stiff polymers like the duckweed can be considered as a passive polymer, even though it's a living system, because when we observe the experiment, they don't grow, so we consider that as a passive polymer with a tunable stiffness. And then worm can be considered as an active polymer, which has a head motion, which can actually create this tangling dynamics. So we put them together. How do they actually move? So to begin with, we did some simple test. So we create one stiff. The green ones are duckweed, and the red ones are active worm. So if the filament is too flexible, the duckweed is too flexible, they're not able to climb. But then if you use a stiff filament, it can climb a little bit, but not too high. But then we see that duckweed has an intrinsic curvature at the tip of the root. So if we put that in the for duckweed or a passive polymer, we see that they can actually grasp that tip and then climb the system. So that was for a single filament, and we consider an array of duckweed. Like we have a stiff poles and also the duckweed which has like a curved shape at the tip of the duckweed. So we see that they can climb, and also this arrays actually can help them. It enhances the lateral motion of the duckweed. The worm. So and also climb a much higher distance compared to a single duckweed. So now, so we also put an array of duckweed and also a large number of worms, like active polymers. So we see that they can actually tangle with each other, and uh, you know, climb the duckweed trees, which is very similar to the experimental system. And here the ability of the worms, which are actually the tangling dynamics, actually help them deform the duckweed and also climb this roots. And in a much closer look, we could see that they are very similar in terms of dynamics. Yeah, so with that, so I haven't talked about the details, so if you are interested, you could come and talk to me. And this is an open question, and this is a curiosity driven study. And I would like to thank all my collaborators, undergraduates, and Hari, Saad, and Lab. Yeah, thank you.
super quickly, that's super cool. So is the physics you just showed us dry or wet? And
It's
also
a dry system,
okay.
yeah. There is no hydrodynamics. It's all like we have some understanding why the worm actually climbed biologically, but it's basically touch. So they are, if they are in contact, then they climb.
And do you have a speculation about the biological?
Yeah, so there is a, so this is in a laboratory setup, and we assume that when you put the worm and the duckweed together, the dissolved oxygen level actually decreases. So that makes them disentangle the blob. So they have this more tendency to see the duckweed. So they climb, and it has to be in the vicinity of the worm. So if the duckweed is too far, they won't climb. If it is close, it's basically touch. So yeah.
Thank you.
So in the simulation,
Yeah.
you have a friction force?
There is no there is no friction between them. There is a overall friction because I do a Brownian simulations. So there is a background friction, but not a contact friction.
And also plant root is elastic.
Yes, so they have finite stiffness. There is an energy for them to bend. Yes.
There's no optimum spring constant.
No, we don't. When we vary that's a parameter. So we vary it and then see whether they can climb on.
So, in your simulation, it looks like the duckweed has more deformation and change of its orientation than in reality. What do you think that discrepancy is from between the reality?
Yeah, I think the real systems I think that the real system duckweed is much more stiffer. But then if you keep them like in the simulations, we see that they will not be able to climb because it requires a lot of energy for them to, deform it. But yeah, so in the simulation, slightly different than the experiments.
Maybe due to things like contact friction or hydrodynamics?
Yeah. There is no hydrodynamics because it's again like even in other I do several other simulations. So when we look at them, they are not really hydrodynamically driven. If they are far away, they don't even want to see each other. So once they are in contact, once they touch, they try to tangle with each other.
So like the shape of the duckweed is kind of like, can we think of it as like a hook, basically?
Yeah, I think this is something we are right now investigating if that is something very important. Like we try to do, cutting the tip just to reduce the oxygen. So the actually duckweed also can control the oxygen level in the water. But they also pump some bit of oxygen, but in a very smaller scale compared to the worm sucking the oxygen from the water. But we are also trying to do some synthetic, like a plastic thread, whether it can climb and whether